and welcome to the Advocacy Academy at Teachers College. I'd like to thank all of you, the students, alumni, faculty, staff, and community members for your presence at such a wonderful and timely event. I would also like to thank the people involved in bringing this event to life. Honey Walren for helping conceptualize the event, as well as the different Teachers College sponsors, including Government Relations, Graduate Student Life and Development, the Office for Diversity and Community Affairs, and the Student Senate. My name is Cameron Arnzen, and I'm the Vice President for the Teachers College Student Senate, as well as a PhD student in the Politics and Education program. I study the intersection of public opinion, political behavior, and educational governance. So like many of you, I have no idea what's going on in politics today. But that's why we're all here. Advocacy isn't a direct answer or an isolated action. It's a continued process, a shift of both thoughts and of approach to the world around us. So while it may seem like there's immeasurable chaos in so many aspects of our lives, and there absolutely is, it's informed and passionate advocacy that helps cut through all of it towards tangible change. Advocacy amid the pandemic, like most things, has drastically changed. But that's why dialogues like these are so valuable. However, despite all of the change, one facet of advocacy has not changed, and that is the most important aspect: listening. While the pandemic has exacerbated and even catalyzed existing inequalities while simultaneously creating new ones, it's important to recognize that public opinion dramatically shows that people are finally seeing the disparities more clearly and hearing the calls for change echoed around us more so than ever before. Before we officially get underway, I want to provide a bit of information about Advocacy Academy at Teachers College. Advocacy Academy is split up into 2 days. The focus of the first day, today, is internal advocacy and investigating your place in a space by making meaning of our own identities, building internal coalitions, and working to repair historic inequities. The focus of the second day is external advocacy, taking action and understanding how to advocate with communities. Participants can engage with any workshop or event at any time with the same Zoom link, but trust me, all of it is great. We have sessions with some of TC's brightest voices, with New York State Assembly members, and even with US Congresspeople. So listen to their stories, they'll be listening to yours, engage with their sessions, and take action to advocate for a smarter, healthier, and more equitable world. Before we begin, we want to get a sense of what your intentions are for the 2 days we have together. We'll be bringing up a Mentimeter, so please go to menti.com and enter the code 4747-7428. So as you're doing that, and once you've entered the code, the question, what are you most looking forward to today, will come up on your screen. Please feel free to submit responses. They are anonymous, so your name will not show up. And we're just kind of, again, going to gauge where we're all at. Okay, so they're coming in. Looking forward to learning from brilliant minds and change makers. That's great. The speakers, also wonderful. Learning from our fantastic speakers. So a lot of people seem to be excited about the speakers, rightfully so. How to effectively get involved now, always a good question. Innovative ways of helping a community during this pandemic. Listening, good, I'm glad you picked up on that. Brainstorming how to use our voices. Oh, that one disappeared. Brainstorming how to use our voices at the ed nonprofit where I work. Learning from community leaders, learning with others. Okay, so there's a lot of community theme here. There's a lot of listening. There's a lot of really great answers here. So it seems like you all have made it to the right place based on your interests today. So let's move to the next question. So this is a fun one. What are you nervous about? Texas. That is on a lot of people's minds right now, rightfully so. Also very relevant for our dialogue about advocacy. Statistics, what are you nervous about? As in like a course statistics in general? I can understand both. Nervous that I will learn that there's nothing more I can do. Okay. That is, that it does not apply to my area of work. Okay. Well, I would say advocacy is relevant in all things that we do, in all ways that we interact with the world around us. I'm uncertain about my bandwidth to engage wider. That's also really important for both internal and external advocacy. Understanding personal capacity and bandwidth is so important. Fragile democracy, mentioning Texas, that it is never enough. Not being able to make effective change, how to narrow down the million priorities. Great, well, thank you all for being open and honest with this. Acknowledging what you're nervous about is a really great step forward. And hopefully this event, these 2 days and the speakers that we have and the workshops that we have will all be really valuable. Okay, let's move on to the next one. What do you hope to learn? So pivoting from the last one, what do you hope to gain from this, these sessions that we have, the speakers that we have? How to talk to my congressman? Well, that is a wonderful question for our congressperson that will be here. How to be a better advocate for silenced voices? What are new ways to get involved? Confidence to engage? How to widen my range of actions? Confidence in my voice to also help others become more confident? Fresh ideas to bring back to our team? How to harness the power of community? So this is great. Again, y'all are in the right place. So, okay, let's go to our last question now. Who or what are driving you to advocate? What are the reasons that you are here? Awareness of reality. New York City public school students and their families. My students, my family, my Blackness, my goddaughter. Passionate about racial and ed equity for Brown and Black communities. Family with a difference of opinion. Students, family, myself, hope. Intergenerational cycles of poverty, abuse caused by systemic and structural. I'm waiting for it to scroll. Systemic and structural inequities, I'm assuming. To be the voice for those who can't express themselves. Well, thank you all for sharing with us and letting us know why you're here and what motivates you to participate and engage, but also to advocate. So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our keynote speaker for this session, Dr. Isabel Martinez. Dr. Martinez is an associate professor in the Department of Latin American and Latinx Studies at John Jay College of Criminal Justice at the City University of New York. A graduate of Teachers College's Sociology and Education program, her research focuses on the impact of social changes on Latinx youths and young adults' lives. Her book, Becoming Transnational Youth Workers, Independent Mexican Teenage Migrants and Pathways of Survival and Social Mobility, highlights findings from examining the life course of unaccompanied out-of-school Mexican immigrant youths living in New York City. More recently, she's been working to document the history of Latinx stand-up comedy in New York City. She's also the founding director of ULAMP, the Unaccompanied Latin American Minor Project, a research and service project that focuses on providing academic, social, and legal support to recently arrived immigrant minors in removal proceedings. Dr. Martinez exemplifies the ideal scholar advocate, someone who uses their extensive expertise and knowledge to work for a better world. So please join me in welcoming our keynote address, Dr. Isabel Martinez.
For that warm introduction, and thank you to Denise and Juan Carlos and to the rest of TC community for inviting me here today. I just want to share it hurts my heart to see that folks are nervous about Texas. I'm a native Texan myself, and I have always been nervous. I was born nervous in Texas, and I would argue that my nervousness and also my anger is probably one of the reasons that led me to grad school. So folks, stay nervous, stay angry, and let that also fuel your advocacy work. So I entered TC in New York City quite a long time ago, 19 years to be exact, a year after 9/11. And in the midst of what was a historic migration of Mexican immigrants to New York City that had begun in earnest a couple of decades earlier. My reason for entering the sociology of education program, PhD program, had much to do with that. I wanted to study Mexican immigrant parents and the ways that they were involved in their children's schooling. As a first generation college graduate and PhD student, I didn't arrive at TC knowing much more than that. I didn't know how I necessarily wanted my advocacy and activism to unfold, whether or not I would even have an impact, or even if I would be an advocate and activist on campus or in my communities. But I'm a big believer that there are oftentimes larger forces at work, ancestral forces that present opportunities to you and guide you to certain people in your life, that if you're open and simply listen, something else that someone brought up earlier, it can lead you to the issues that you should be championing and the advocacy and activism that you should engage in. Perhaps prominent Chicana theorists, Gloria Yanzaldúa, and folks like sociologist C. Wright Mills foresaw this in their theorizing about the intersection of history and biography in Mills's case, or in Yanzaldúa's case, the theorizing of the flesh. But little did I know that these issues that I would dedicate the next nearly 20 years of my life to were rooted in my own family history and events that had occurred 100 years before in Mexico, with a teenage girl, Josefa Cermeño Martinez, who is a 16-year-old without any formal schooling, would walk and ride a carreta, or an ox-driven cart, over 400 miles to enter the United States without papers, without permission, and to become the matriarch of now over 5 generations, and my grandmother. She never received formal schooling, and my own father, the only one of her 16 children to graduate from high school, dropped out after 1 semester of college to support my family. My family's inability to fully access formal schooling and also to feel fully entitled to formal schooling then would inform the issues that have kept me up at night, the issues that I have most struggled with the most and fought for to ensure for myself, but also for other underrepresented first generation youths and young adults at various levels, individually through my mentoring, more collectively through my teaching, but also at institutional levels to enact changes. My work has manifested in programs and even centers over the years, such as the establishment at TC of the first Black-Brown dialogues, or BBD as we called it, and then Black, Brown, Asian dialogues, or what we called BBAD, with my colleagues, Dr. James E. Alford, who was then the president of the Black Student Network and is now an associate professor at William Patterson University, and Dr. John Dow Chen, then leader of the Asian Pacific Islander American Initiative, and now associate teaching professor at the University of Washington. And this happened at TC. And then post-TC, as mentioned earlier, my creation of ULAMP, the Unaccompanied Latin American Minor Project, and the first college-level Immigrant Student Success Center in all of New York City, and at CUNY at John Jay. This intersection of history and biography, or my family history, as well as my own experience of having access to high-quality public and private schooling, as well as awareness of social inequalities, has guided much of the advocacy and activism that I've engaged in my entire life. But it really took root here at Teachers College when I was a PhD student, and TC provided me with a strong foundation. I have fought for institutional change even post TC as an assistant professor and now associate professor at the Hispanic Serving Institution, John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and have modeled fighting for institutional change for my students, who are the next generation of advocates and activists. My grandmother's story, uncovered by my uncle, combined with my family's history, combined with my biography of schooling in integrated public school and then private school settings, provided me with a foundation and templates that I would draw from for my work in creating solidarity movements across groups, but also in supporting immigrant youths as well as Latinx youths and young adults. It was the former, creating cross-racial solidarity movements, that shaped my tenure at Teachers College, and that I urge graduate students and other community members to engage in this work, especially at this moment, regardless of the other advocacy and activism you take on. We all know the old adage, stronger together, and that is absolutely true, but is more than a slogan, and it's more than the light networking for individual benefit that many folks seem to champion these days. Rather, nothing gets done without forging deep, trusting relationships that are based in vulnerability, trust, and respect. These are what enabled me and my colleagues to create strong, safe spaces where we could learn from each other, where we could brainstorm, we could plan, and then we could expand these safe spaces for more folks to broach sensitive topics that continue to beg for exploration. In our case at Teachers College, we were most committed to challenging the structural racism that continues to keep racial groups, especially those who are oppressed, apart and in conflict with each other, so that white supremacy is never seriously challenged. We believe that by honestly addressing our own interracial and ethnic conflicts among ourselves before banding together to challenge white supremacy, we could and would be stronger when we work together. But this only happened over time and with investments of time. When I entered into Teachers College, I, like many of you, was just trying to get my footing. Lucky for me, I met two fierce Black women mentors early on, Vice President for Diversity and Community Affairs, Janice Robinson, and Associate Director for Student Life, Yvonne Destin, who would act as my mentors as I was developing my own leadership skills, and were committed to putting me into spaces where they knew I had something to say and I could be in community with other students who were also deeply committed to educational justice. It was in these spaces that the seeds of respect between student leaders were planted, and I met the folks who I would not only collaborate with, but who would become my rocks during graduate school. They were these seeds that led to the forging of deeply trusting relationships, which without solidarity and change are tenuous at best. Teachers College was a place where I, as one of the leaders of the Latinx student group, Coalition of Latinx Scholars, I was learned and was able to engage in this, to develop deep friendships across racial boundaries, so that when we began to do the hard work of interrogating the oft-reproduced falsehoods that were held up to ensure racial competition and not solidarity, so that white supremacy is not challenged, we knew that our missteps were honest and accidental and nothing more. We could skip the side-eye drama because we had done the work to know and trust each other as humans first. Although we did not know it at the time, along with the leaders of the Black Student Network and the Asian Pacific Islander American Initiative and their student members, we were developing what Dr. Yolanda Seeley Ruiz calls critical love, or relationships with each other and across our student groups that were rooted in humanization, care and love, truths, justice, and shared understandings. Creating this love and culture is hard work and takes time and is too often rushed in today's efforts to create change. We created this deep trust and love across many moments and spaces that Teachers College may offer you: in the dining hall, while we work together as graduate assistants in various offices, in the library while we were studying, in graduate housing, while watching reality shows, at parties, as well as in meetings, in our own student club meetings and meetings with administrators and each other. We broke bread and made each other laugh, but we also took the time to learn about each other, our values, our aspirations and goals, always asking honest and sometimes difficult questions that then allowed us to work together on issues where we knew that we needed each other, but also issues apart from each other, but always having each other's backs. While I and my colleagues did this on our own in our private spaces and times, we also utilized institutional support from the Office of the VP of Community and Diversity, the Office of Student Life, as well as administrators like Vice President Robinson I mentioned, and faculty like Dr. Marie Maville in the Department of Counseling and Psychology. Look for these folks and look for these offices. It was with the support of these offices and individuals that we, as student leaders, were able to expand the safe spaces that we created as friends and colleagues to include others and to institutionalize them as part of the student life programming. We walked away from these spaces and conversations with deeper understandings and knowledges of each other, with deeper trust, and with concrete plans to improve the conditions for Black, Latinx, and Asian students at Teachers College. Teachers College was a place that helped me to further realize that we must have critical love as a starting place and as a goal. And because of this, I was able to develop and access a fearlessness in being able to have hard conversations without reproach. I've drawn from this in many ways across my career, including developing collaborations with folks at the University of Texas at El Paso, as well as within John Jay, and across with John Jay in collaboration with other organizations in the city. In many ways, Teachers College provided me with a space, resources, and most of all, tribes to develop confidence as a leader and more deeply access my voice, a skill that has served me well as I've gone through tenure, but more importantly, as I've continued to remain committed to enacting social justice in my classrooms and communities. But TC also provided me with the skills to bring critical love and dialogue with research, to think critically and to be a pionera or pioneer in challenging research, as well as then apply my research to impact lives. Mentors like Dr. Erin Pallas encouraged my research on a topic at a time where hardly anyone else was focusing on unaccompanied immigrant minors, and long before an awareness about the arrivals of these youths from Latin America. Various offices and grant programs provided me with the funds to engage in this research, which allowed me to develop a deeper understanding of this issue and become more authentically engaged with various immigrant rights organizations around the city, including the now defunct Vamos Unidos in the Bronx. While I was collecting data and writing, whether I was also listening and providing the resources folks were asking for, including resources to support the use in my study, whether it was enrolling in English classes, traditional high school, writing letters of support for DACA, potential DACA folks later on, et cetera. Being privy to the stories and needs of unaccompanied immigrant youths eventually led me to Safe Passage Project, the only nonprofit organization in the tri-state area that solely focuses on providing direct legal services to mostly unaccompanied immigrant youths. Since 2014, I've worked with them to better support and communicate with these youths. Through ULAMP, over 90, mostly John Jay students, the majority of whom are themselves first-generation college goers, are immigrant or children of immigrants, are bilingual and bicultural, have gained professional experience in supporting both immigrant youths, but also their legal teams who are representing them. In ULAMP, students develop skills as interpreters and translators, but also learn to conduct things like home visits that precede the release of some immigrant youths from shelters, and overall engage with youths and their families to provide them with the support as they navigate a complicated legal system, schooling system, and overall transition to a new country. The majority of the youths that my students support are refugees from countries that have been victim to multiple threats, including imperialism, drug violence, and now the climate catastrophes exacerbated by deforestation enacted by multinational corporations. My students have continued to become leaders in immigrant youth spaces, as well as several ULAMPers have held the prestigious Immigrant Justice Corps Community Fellowship, a fellowship that has mostly selected students from private elite institutions. They've joined renowned organizations such as the Asylum Seeker Advocacy Project, or ASAP. They've entered into social work and law schools, etc. Aside from the obvious, that I obtained a PhD so I could be a professor, something that when I entered into TC wasn't necessarily my goal, but that's a talk for another time. I would also argue that I obtained a PhD and became a scholar so I could engage in this advocacy work, and TC provided me the space to do so. From the start, I was ambivalent about becoming a scholar, but I knew that I wanted to impact young people's lives, especially young Latinx's lives, and having the space to become a stronger leader, but also scholar merged together to provide me with the opportunity to do so in the ways that bring me the most satisfaction and joy, as an educator, as a mentor, but also in bringing folks together and executing much needed program and policy changes that are rooted in my research. While I don't see myself, and I'm not, someone who influences capital P public policy, my work, my scholarship, but also my long career as an educator and mentor has allowed me to speak with authority, to influence policies and create programs that have local and individual impacts. And this is an important place to be in as well. And like I said, examples of this have included the founding of the first college level immigrant student success center in New York City at John Jay, as well as more recently my board work as the newest board member of Safe Passage Project. As we continue to endure through this pandemic and to begin or continue to address the inequality that COVID has laid bare, as well as the vulnerabilities of our communities, it's critical to draw from our own ancestral and present strengths to guide you into the advocacy and activism that you wish to do. Also draw from Teachers College and its vast amount of resources, social, cultural, but also economic, to develop or further develop into the advocates and activists that you want to become. As you do both, do remember that all work must engage others in love and solidarity. It is imperative for folks not to hurry love, but rather to take the time and develop those deep trusting relationships here and external to TC to activate real sustainable change. Thank you.